Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. Glad you could join me. Make sure that you are following and subscribe to the podcast. Also, visit the PAS Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends and on social media. I have a great guest today. I have Politick Rick, friend of the show, back on, and we're going to talk about how ordinary Americans can get involved in the process. So many times we hear, what can we do? What can we do? So now we're going to talk about it. Rick, always a pleasure to have you on. How are you today?
Hey, Nick, I'm glad to be back. I was thinking back to the first time I was on your show. We were talking about cancel culture and, how that would affect the First Amendment and how terrible that was. And since then, we're now in a position where they're jailing people. They're putting a grandmother who was praying at Planned Parenthood. They put her in jail. I think she got 4 years. It's crazy. It's absolutely unbelievable that we're even here. But way back then, people would say to me, Rick, you want to focus on the First Amendment, but there's things that are way more important than that. Well, here we are. Turns out there's nothing more important than that. If they can shut us up so that we can't communicate at all, we can't rally our fellow patriots. We can't sound the alarm when there's something that's happening that is just unconscionable, not allowable under the Constitution, tyrannical, totalitarian, maybe even would be a way to describe.
That's the point. I mean, when you look at everything that's being done, if you control what people could say and what they can't say, what they could hear and what they can't hear, essentially you control their thoughts and opinions. That's the ultimate goal. It's the largest social engineering experiment that we are currently living through. It's terrifying. And when you look at a lot of Americans, many just they're not paying attention, they're not aware, and some don't even care what's going on. Some actually encourage it. That's frightening. But you and I have spoken about this a lot. You're the founder of Giant Slayers, and we talk about how ordinary people can actually get involved in the system. Are you dismayed at the lack of participation within the political process? And I'm not just talking about voting. I'm talking about, up and down at all levels of government, just a lack of participation from ordinary Americans within the political process.
Well, I was very worried about that because, we have to fight back. And I think what's happened, I took a good deal of time to kind of dig into, well, why aren't people responding? Why aren't they fighting back? Why don't they just say, no, we're not going to let them do this anymore. It ends right here. I think there's a lot of things that play in. I think that basically we've been subjected to about a 6-year psyop, and they pile on. You've never seen this in the United States before, where every single day there's something else. They did this and they did that, and sort of the underlying idea behind all of it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. They put people in jail. They jailed the J6ers. The grandma that I talked about just recently got thrown in jail for praying. They're doing all kinds of things that strike fear in people's hearts. So a lot of the reason that people aren't participating is they're scared. They don't know what to do, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. So I decided, what we need to do? We need to get together. Somebody needs to lead the crowd here. That's what we have to do to get this moving in the right direction. And I will say this, the Turning Point USA event here in Detroit over the weekend was an incredible success. They had over 10,000 people showed up for that. It's kind of a mirror image of what Giant Slayers is getting ready to do. Charlie has done a phenomenal job, just incredible what he's put together over the last 10 years. And he focuses on college campuses, and probably 35 and below really are focused on the programs that he offers. Giant Slayers is going to step forward, and what we want to do is put together programs and opportunities for people to fight back in the crowd that's 36 and older. Because, we've got a huge retired population out there just like me. that have unlimited time available, assuming they want to allocate it to this, where we could make incredible progress. But what I'm hearing from these folks is, Rick, if I knew what to do, I'd do it. Just, what do we do? So I'm putting together a platform, an online platform that will launch tentatively in September. We're getting it ready now, and hopefully it's online by September. And what it will do, we will do the research for folks. So, you don't have to be a political expert. If you follow along with us and you get involved in what we're doing on the Giant Slayers website, you'll become a political expert. But we'll give you an analysis of the problem. We'll give you options of things that you can do to help fight back. It could be making a telephone call to a senator or congressman, send a text message, comment on social media, sign a petition, knock on doors. We'll be doing all of those things, and we're going to give you everything you need to do it. All you got to do is show up on that website and get active and get involved and do the things that we're suggesting you do. Now, here's what's really important about this. People get on social media, and it's been really important to have a lot of people on social media all commenting on the problems of the day. As a matter of fact, the reason that they went to work and canceled so many people, just purged them, kicked them off the social media platforms, and Giant Slayers was one of them. I'm on there, but not with the Giant Slayers account. Or actually, I just got a Giant Slayers account back that we can use. But they kicked us off. And the reason they did it, they don't want to hear what we have to say. And there were so many people on there saying it. It was very threatening to them. At this point in time, that made a statement and impact. But at this point in time, just commenting on everything that happens every day, the kind of the look what they did now kind of tweet out there, it's good. And we want to hear those voices. But what would be even better is if we focus those voices on specific strategic areas that will help us get change.
And let's be honest, when it comes to putting stuff out there on social media, it's about echo chambers, right? I mean, if you're conservative, you lean to the right, you're going to see mostly tweets from the right or X's or posts from the right. You're going to see conservative points of view. Or as a conservative, you'll just be throttled, where if you're on the left side of the political spectrum, you're just going to see tweets and posts from the left. And that's where we just speak to the echo chambers, and nobody's mind gets changed doing that. But the Republicans have a real problem, and I want to talk to you more about that when we get back from this quick break. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Are you prepared for the unexpected? As a former emergency manager, being prepared is not a choice, it's a necessity, and that's where the Wellness Company comes in. Imagine having the peace of mind that you're equipped to handle any medical crisis, from tick bites to the latest pandemic. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit is your lifeline, packed with essential medications like ivermectin, emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and more. This kit is your ultimate preparedness solution. The Wellness Company's team of renowned medical professionals, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. James Thorpe, Dr. Harvey Risch, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and more. They are truth-seeking doctors, and they have designed a kit that sets the gold standard for safety and prevention. Don't wait for the next crisis to strike. Visit twc.health/PAS and use promo code PAS for an exclusive 10% discount just for being a listener of this show. Prepare today, rest easy tomorrow. Use code PAS at checkout. Welcome back, everyone. So Republicans have a problem in the first place. See, the Republicans are really, really, really good at complaining. And it's easy to complain, right? I mean, Republicans will complain about anything and everything. However, when it comes to actually getting involved, the Republican Party has failed. There's no disputing that. Democrats, on the other hand, have built out this enormous activist base. They mobilize. They know how to get out the vote. They know how to get people organized and coordinated for political public relations purposes and messaging and narratives. They know issues that drive people to polls. And Republicans don't have any of that. They haven't focused on that at all. And that's been one of their biggest weaknesses. For example, take the open border situation. We are seeing an enormous backlash in Black and Hispanic communities that they're tired of having all these people come in, they're getting all these benefits, and American citizens, Americans, are being ignored. and crime is increasing. Their lives are becoming much more difficult. And so there's a huge backlash. You're seeing these press conferences of ordinary residents that are screaming and yelling. They're complaining about the problem. And the one thing I don't see at any of these press conferences is a Republican representative to say, we hear you. We hear you. You've tried the Democrats for the last half century to full century, and it hasn't worked for you. At least give us a chance. You have nothing to lose at this point. Give us a chance. You don't see any of that type of major outreach going on. There's pockets of it, but there's not a coordinated effort. And that's the problem with Republicans. Republican officials just magically expect people are going to vote for them, but you got to give people something to vote for. So as ordinary Americans, how do ordinary Americans get involved, volunteer, put time in, and actually do the work that the Republican Party itself isn't doing?
I think one of the core principles of Giant Slayers and how this all came about, the research that I did, the left has organizations that are incredible at the grassroots level. There's a group called Indivisible. Go to indivisible.org and look at what those folks are doing over there. We're going to do the same thing in reverse, using Republican issues. They say that they have chapters in every voting district in the United States. So what do Republicans do in the past? And the game is changing. The game is changing a lot. In the past, what we did was we competed for high propensity voters. These are people who always come out. They vote in every single election. We would go after them, and we would do it with television ads that we would run nationally. And we wouldn't worry about getting involved in the grassroots, getting involved in the neighborhoods, going into the inner city and doing those kinds of things. Well, the game has changed now. Now what we're doing is we're competing for low propensity voters. This is what while we were busy running ads and patting ourselves on the back for, going to the inner city, that's just not who we are, that kind of attitude. They were busy getting down there and encouraging low propensity voters to vote. Well, we're going to do the same thing. Charlie Kirk's got a huge operation going. Giant Slayers is going to be part of it. And in the future, this is what we have to deal with. And vote early. Okay, no more showing up on election day and then they just
yeah, people have a habit of making a million and one excuses not to show up on election day.
And they, for instance, what happened in Arizona, all they had to do was sabotage the machines and there went election day. In Nevada, they had an ice storm and people didn't show. There went election day. We need to stop worrying about election fraud. I mean, we're going to need to worry about it. The best thing we can do there is get Trump back in office and have him eliminate the problem once and for all. But going into this election, we can't worry about that. Maybe they used the machines, maybe they didn't, but you know what? If it isn't the machines, they got 99 more ways to cheat and they're going to do it.
The point is you got to overwhelm them at the polls where, if Republicans are showing that they're 2 points ahead in the polls, well, you better get 10 points ahead with turnout because you're going to need it. And that's the thing. The more turnout you have, it's a game of numbers. Politics isn't that hard. It's a game of numbers. The more people you get to the polls, the more likely you increase your successes.
We have, and I've heard this time and time again over the years as well, we lost because Republicans didn't show up. Well, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to give you an ability to identify low propensity voters near your house, right by your house, maybe 10 at a time. And then we're going to ask you to go out and knock on their doors. There's nothing more effective than somebody in their own neighborhood showing up and talking to them about what's happening in the neighborhood and how the kids are doing in the school, how they're doing in the local school, and connecting with them at that level, and then talk about politics and what we need to do in the coming election and how important it is that they show up this time and early. If there's any doubt of an ability to show up on election day and vote, if there's been hanky-panky with the machines in the past, show up early. We're just going to bring in so many voters that instead of having to put one semi-trailer load of ballots on the road, they're going to have to put 10 semi-trailers loaded of ballots. And it won't take them a week to count them. It'll take them 3 weeks to count them. They can't do that. It'll stick out like a sore thumb. It'll never fly. They're not stupid, and they don't want to go to jail. So
Well,
that's what
now
we're going to do.
election time, that's just one area, right? I mean, obviously, people pay attention to the presidential elections every 4 years. Then you have the off-year elections, the midterm elections. But besides voting and getting people out to vote, how else can people get engaged in the system in order to fulfill their civic responsibility?
Well, one of the things that we're going to focus on is recruiting precinct captains. These are the people that within the party, the Republican Party, they're responsible for a voting district. And they communicate with people in that district. They also get to vote for the state chair, and the state chair votes for the national chair. So if we want to take back our party and make sure that we keep America First MAGA people in those seats, we need people manning the precincts, throughout the country. Today, we've got about 400,000 precincts across the United States, and only half of them have somebody in charge of the voting precinct. If we just fill those spots, if we filled all those spots, we would be overwhelmingly powerful. And then you can deliver a message to the people in your neighborhoods and in the precinct about what's going on. We've got to do that in the election itself. You can show up, get a hold of the Republican Party local, get a hold of your precinct chair and ask them, how can you contribute? The precinct chair's got to deliver information to people in their voting district. You could help with that. Or you could help with the RNC. You could be a poll watcher. You could do a lot of different things that would be very helpful to maintain control of the voting system, but also support our party so that we become strong again. And then we're not going to stop there. So I think Giant Slayers and Turning Point USA, for example, have become powerful forces separate from the party. We're supporting the party, but separate from the party. And we can do things, one of the biggest problems we have is, what about all those rhinos in Congress that they tell us they're going to save our country, and then they vote to extend the debt ceiling? They vote for warrantless FISA extensions so they can use FISA to spy on you and me. They can use FISA to spy on President Trump's presidential campaign. It's bizarre. We don't want this, but they seem to not care about what we want. And it's because they get a lot of pressure from large groups, lobby groups, the military industrial complex, the defense contractors, big pharma, big tech, and they don't hear from you. You're not a threat. Sort of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Well, I think there's a big reason for that, and it's because people have disengaged from the political process. And I want to talk to you more about that when we get back from this quick break, because I think that's a key thing that nobody really focuses on. So everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So a lot of the reason that we're in this position, in my opinion, is that people have disengaged from the political process. Politick Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that, well, I think, Nick, personally, it's because people just don't see a way to be involved. And really, if you just came and asked me today to get involved, I wouldn't really know what to do either. You need somebody leading the charge and giving you the tools. That's the key to what Giant Slayers will do. We're going to give people the tools they need to fight back. We're going to give them the tools they need to be heard. Right now, we're silent. We're going to change that. These guys, we're not going to give them a chance to breathe. We're going to be commenting on their social media comments. They can't make statements anymore that aren't true, because we're going to be right there to set the record straight. We're going to be talking to their staffs, telling them that, listen, if you don't want to support America First and where we're trying to go with this, then you might not be the right guy come next election. Now, let me point out one thing that's very important, because I hear about Giant Slayers will target the rhinos, and we're already doing it. Is those folks need to go. They're selling us out. They're part of what we call the uniparty. So they're people that want the establishment to stay the same, to not change. We call that the uniparty. That's both Democrats and Republicans. They want it to stay the same, and you can be sure they're making a lot of money by it staying the same, which is a big part of the reason they want that. we're going to go after them and we're going to out them. They're not going to get away. Like my congressman here in Texas, he voted to extend the debt ceiling. He voted for warrantless FISA. He voted for Ukraine. These are all things that nobody in MAGA wants. As a matter of fact, it's a slap in the face. It's telling us that you don't care about us. You don't even take into consideration what we think. Well, we need to be on the phone and letting his staff know that, no, we see you. We see what you're doing. If they get, I've seen this time and time again. I was on a space on Twitter where the woman that was running it said, oh, Rick, they won't do anything. They'll just hang up and forget about you. I tell you what, if that was the case, indivisible.org wouldn't be running that website that they're running that's asking people to do exactly that. I wouldn't be listening to Bannon's show with people coming on there and saying the ability for us to fight back in Congress, the predicate is laid by your war room posse getting on the phone and letting the politicians know that they're not going to stand for it anymore. So yeah, no, if your voice is heard, it makes a difference. If a lot of voices are heard, it makes an even bigger difference. So if Giant Slayers has 1 million people following it, which I hope to be the case within the next 12 months, and only 20% of those get involved on a given day, that's a huge influx of telephone calls. These guys are going to get worried. But we're going to let them know that, we don't want what you're doing for us. And here's a very important thing, because I hear people telling me all the time that, well, Rick, we can't talk out about Republicans because remember Reagan's 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of any Republican. Well, two things. Things were different back when Reagan was in office. Back then, you didn't have 50% or more. I think it's more like 75% of the people in Congress are influenced by China, big tech, big pharma. They're getting money and paid off in so many different ways that they're not on our side. And we need to ferret out those people that aren't on our side and get people who are going to do what's right and within the Constitution. We need people that just care about the Constitution for starters. And then if we had people that were skilled statesmen, that would be even better. But the point I'm trying to get to is we have to speak out. There's no way to remove these people from Congress if we don't speak out, but there's a way to do it. So one thing that has gotten us into this jam over the years is people don't participate in elections, and they don't participate in primaries hardly at all. It's just amazing how few people show up in a primary. The time to out the guy in your party who isn't doing the job is in that primary. And then once it's decided, once the primary is decided, is what they used to do. Here's what they do. They pick their guy, the deep state does. They pick their guy, they put them in the primary where nobody's going to participate, spend huge amounts of money to make sure that they get elected. And then when we get to the election and everybody figures out that, well, wait a minute, he voted for this and he's not on our side, then they tell you, well, you know what? He's better than a Democrat. So let's vote for them. They played us all these years. It wasn't by accident. They have played us. They absolutely have played us. We need to put an end to it and be involved in those primaries and make sure we get America First mega candidates. If we don't get our guy, well, you know what? It's true. Whatever guy we put up that's a Republican is better than a Democrat. And that's when Reagan's 11th commandment comes into play and we get them elected and move on. Now, my guy, John Carter, here in Texas, I've been posting on Twitter and letting people know, hey, we're going to support him. We're going to get him through the election. And then after that, every single day, I'm going to be speaking out against anything that he does that doesn't fit into the MAGA America First grouping of ideas. And we're going to keep doing that until he does one of two things. He either resigns or he loses the next primary. That's what we need to do. We need to fight because these people, they've sold us out. We're getting ready to lose our country. if we don't do these things. So
Well, it's a big problem when you have Republicans and Democrats getting together and they're passing bills where you see insane amount of taxpayer dollars go to things that don't benefit the United States and actually weaken us as a nation. You see our national debt has surged. You see the open borders. You see the collapse of an education system. You see our streets are more dangerous. And the question becomes, well, if the Republicans aren't fighting for the people and the Democrats aren't fighting for the people, that's another reason why people begin to back off the system. They disengage from the process. And unfortunately, they don't realize how much power they have if they get involved and get active.
That's exactly right. And what I'm looking to do, people have been a little demoralized, because they keep getting.
You know how many times I hear my vote doesn't matter? And I'm like, it's that logic, that line of thinking that got us into this position in the first place.
Every day in the news, they get their nose rubbed in it, and the underlying idea is that, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just so wrong. So that's why I put together Giant Slayers, and that's why we're putting together this online platform to fight, because it is so wrong. There are so many things we can do to fight back, and you don't have to spend 100 hours a week. You could spend 2 hours a week. And if I had 1 million people following Giant Slayers and each one of them spent 2 hours a week, that's 2 million hours a week. That's a huge amount of effort going into this. If we did that, I guarantee you we would control the marketplace. Now, here's another thing that I want to focus in on. So here's what we do. We get close to the elections. Nobody really wants to do the grassroots work and get out and knock on doors, volunteer to be poll watcher or do those kinds of things. And then the whole thing doesn't happen for us. We end up losing another election. Everybody becomes even more demoralized. That doesn't have to be the case. You don't have to be a precinct captain, which would be a good deal of work. It's important, but it would be a good deal of work. You can from home do everything I'm asking you to do. Anybody could do this. And here's the beauty of this. There's an army of 62 years plus patriots out there that is huge, and it's growing. It's increasing at an increasing rate at this point in time. There's so many of us. We are literally in a position of there's not that many of them. There's a huge number of us if we just decide to get together and work together. Now, here's what Indivisible does. So we run ads when we get close to the elections to hopefully pull this thing out. They send people out into the neighborhoods. They've got chapters in every voting district. They'll go out into the neighborhoods and talk to the people, knock on doors, and they don't need advertising anymore. They'll make sure people get to the polls. And, some of them make sure that even more people than exist.
Retail politics always works.
Yep, it absolutely is the way out of this. There is no other way out of this. So by joining together, getting together with Giant Slayers, and you can join us now. Go to giantslayers with a S on the end .net, giantslayersplural.net, and at the bottom of the page there's a sign up. Put your email address in there. When we get closer to the launch date, you'll start to get emails explaining next steps, and we'll get this whole thing going. But right now, just get involved. And then probably within the next week, I'm going to have a donations page set up on the website. If you can, you don't want to put in this amount of time, but you can donate, hey, do that. It all goes to the same cause. I think that if we do these things, if we learn to fight back together, we will be dominant. We're just letting groups like it's not just Indivisible. They've got tons of them. And one of the things Giant Slayers will do long term is help people start nonprofits. The left does it. They've got websites that do exactly that. There are nonprofits starting up all over the place on the left, and we do nothing except sit at home, wring our hands, and wonder how soon we're going to lose our country, and just, wish there was something we could do about it. Well, there is, and I'm offering it to you. Somebody needs to lead the charge. That will be me and Giant Slayers. We've got a good group of people, probably 5,000 people right now that are ready to fight. If you'll join us, I'm telling you, we will be so powerful. And keep in mind, this doesn't end on election day. they're not going to just turn over the keys to the kingdom and say, all right, well, Trump won. And yeah, you know what? We're going to lose all of our, international operations in China and all the payments that we're going to receive and jobs offers and opportunities, through the UN.
No, they're not giving it up that easily.
It's we they're not going to give up. They're making money. They're getting money. They need the wars to continue. The military industrial complex makes huge
Yeah,
amounts
they
of money.
need the status quo. Without the status quo, they don't survive.
A lot of people don't understand these companies that do this kind of work. They're full service. So they will sell you the weapons. They will help you. They will sell you mercenaries. You need soldiers, they got soldiers. They'll help you blow the place up. And when it's all done and the country is in tatters, they'll come in and they will rebuild the country for you.
They rebuild everywhere else but the United States. Truly amazing.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Our country's falling apart. We got bridges falling apart. We're busy defending Ukraine's border and we can't defend our own. This has to end.
It does. And Rick, I appreciate you coming on the program. We'll have links up at the website so that people go visit. And I want to thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks, Nick. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to come on and talk to your loyal followers that I know are active and doers, and hopefully they'll join us and do even a little more.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.